So in the last video, we handled the ground and air states for our character. Now we'd like to add in a couple attacks. So attacks are going to work a little differently than the ground and air state in that a character that is attacking may not be able to freely move necessarily. And it's going to play an animation, and then when that animation is done, we automatically return to either the ground or air state, depending on if the attack is made on the ground or if it's in the air. I'll just start by adding in another state. Let's add in a character state, let's say. And then we'll say this is the ground attack. Okay, and we're looking for the animation attack 1, attack 2, attack 3. Okay, so I'll right click on ground attack. Let's extend the script. So this will be player ground attack. And if we look at the animated sprite, you see that there's 3 attacks here, right? So we want to be able to basically cycle between them or go from 1 to 2 to 3. And then if 3 is finished, we automatically go back to ground. But we would also want to be able to cancel out of attack 1, attack 2, and attack 3 if we decide not to press the attack key anymore. So we'll need to get the attack input from player input, and we'll need to check at the end of each animation if we should still continue the ground attack inside of the ground attack state. So I'm going to also put in here at export var attack 3, which would be a string name. Okay, so our first animation is, let's see, attack, or okay, attack space 1, right? So attack 1, attack 2, and attack 3 here. Okay, so let's take a look at the attack 1 animation. If I hit play, you'll see that there's a few frames here, and depending on the frame, it kind of appears like the collision shape should be changing on what the character can hit and what it can't. So we'll need a collision shape out here, and we'd want that to kind of adjust depending on the position where the sword is currently at during its swing. So I think a good way of handling that would actually be to include an animation player. Initially, I was trying to avoid the animation player to keep things as simple as possible, but in this case, the collisions are very much tied to the exact frame that we're at for the animations. So we can use an animation player with the animated sprite for another layer of basically power, but also complexity. So I'm going to right click on Captain Clown Nose. Let's add in an animation player. And then here I'm going to create some animations that are specific to the animation player. So let's add in a new animation. I'll say attack. Let's just call it attack 1, attack _ 1. Then I want to add in the property tracks for, let's say, the animated sprite 2D. What animation are we playing on the frame? Well, we're going to play animation 1. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do here is add property track on the animated sprite 2D again, and we're going to do the frames. So we already have the frames assigned here in the animations. So what we just need to do here is we need to change the value of the property, and that's going to mean the key is the value of which frame we're currently playing. So make sure that this one's at 0, 0. Let's set up the frame snapping here to be to how fast we want the animation to play. I'll just do 0.1 for 10 frames per second. We change the first frame to 0 here. And then let's snap timeline cursor to 0.1, add in a frame, change this value to 1, and then 0.2, add this to 0.2. So if we hit play here, we can see our animation still plays, and we want to cut off the animation over here on the right to 0.3. So this should be a non-looping animation. Oh, and this frame needs to be 2. That's why it looks weird. Okay, so hit play. Yep, and there we have our attack finishing. Okay, so yeah, this is definitely an extra step above just playing the animation directly on the animated sprite 2D. Instead, what we'll have to do is play it on the animation player. But what this allows us to do also is to change other properties that are unrelated to the animated sprite 2D, like our collision shape. So let's add in to facing. I'll add in let's say an area 2D node. Let's call this sword. And then this is going to have a collision shape 2D. We can Well, let's see. What kind of shape is this? Probably something like I want to say like a capsule shape. And then let's move it over here. E to rotate, and I'm going to rotate it sideways, 90 degrees. Going to shrink the sides, and something kind of like that, maybe a little bit wider, is probably appropriate for our sword. So I want to take this collision shape, and I want to change its position and possibly its size, depending on what frame of the animation we're on. So let's see, I will keyframe it there for the position, and then we'll go to 0, 0, and I will keyframe its position over here. So you can press keyframe on the right, which adds a keyframe to the animation track. Okay, so rather than creating a different shape on every frame, what I'll do is I will just scale it down at the first frame. So let's do scale here, create, and then go down here, and we're gonna hit, let's see, I think it's Shifty, no, S, to scale it, and then scale this as well. Okay, and then at frame 0, we want to scale this down. So I'm going to, let's say, shrink. Yeah, let's just shrink it and keyframe that. So now at frame 0, it looks like this, and at frame 1, it's more like this. And then we can also maybe scale it up a bit on this frame. We can reposition it if we like to. So keyframe, keyframe. And now our attack is going to look something like this. Oh, and we don't want it to actually grow in size. We want it to just immediately jump. So you should change continuous over here to discrete. Okay, and this would be much more appropriate for our pixel art animation. So that would be our first attack. Now we also want to make sure that this is enabled. So I'm going to set disabled false as a keyframe here. But on the reset, we're going to want to actually take this and set it to true. So whenever we're done with the animation, we are going to turn off this collision shape altogether. So only when we start the attack is it going to have that collision. Okay, so that's our first animation. Let's duplicate this and we'll have an attack 2. So we just changed this animation to attack 2. I can check how many frames are in here. There's 3. So back to the animation player. We don't even need to change the frame number because it's already assigned here. So what we actually need to do is adjust our collision shapes again. So let's work on that. So frame 0, the collision shape, we'll just kind of pop it up here. Okay, and that can be our keyframe there. We jump to the next one. Okay, it looks pretty wide here, so I will make this much bigger, kind of like that. So keyframe size and position. And then we go to the last one. And here I think it's going to shrink down to something kind of like that. And keyframe. So we hit play. And that's our attack 2. Okay, so we can now duplicate this again and just do attack 3. Okay, let's change the animation to attack 3. Let's hit play. Okay, so we can see this one kind of goes outwards, right? So on the first frame, let's move our collision shape down to here, kind of a low attack. Keyframe, position, and scale. Next frame, we'll make it big again. Keyframe, position, and scale. And then up here, we will make it something like this. Just kind of where you imagine the sword to be. Obviously, the slash marks indicate that it's there, but the sword's over here. But it should be like, what do you think the sword should be hitting in that in between of the frame? So yeah, keyframe, the position, and scale, and that's basically it. Yeah. So there's our 3 attack animations. Now, if we're going to be using the animation player for everything at this point, which I think we are going to be, then we do need to add back in as well other animations. So we'll say idle s. Okay. And then we're going to need to add in the track of the animated sprite animation. Add that in here. So idle s. Then we need the frames. So add in the frames track. Okay, and just like before, we're just gonna go like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can even click on animated sprite, and I guess you can't do that with sprite. I guess you can't do that with animated sprite. Usually there would be keyframes over here for sprite 2D, but I guess they don't have that for animated sprite. Interesting. So we'll have to just manually go to 1, insert key, change the value to 1. Not too much more of a trouble, but just do this for every frame of the idle animation. And if you want to see the idle animation, just see here, there's 5 frames, so we need to do this 5 times. So this is 3, this is 4. We want looping enabled, make it just after the 5th frame ends, and then you can hit play, and that is playing our idle animation through the animation player. Okay, and then lastly we need, well, 2 more, I guess. We need run s. Actually, I will duplicate this. That'll be quicker. Duplicate for run s, change the animation to run s, and let's see, is that all of the frames? Click on animated sprite 2D. Nope, we're missing one. So just have to insert another key here, frame 5, change the duration to 0.6, hit play. Okay, and there, I think that's our proper run animation. Remember though, on reset, this is supposed to be disabled. So if you ever, like your character's running and this isn't disabled for any reason, it might be accidentally hitting a target when it's just not supposed to be, because this is a run animation, not an attack. So just keep that in mind. Let's duplicate this one more time, and then we'll have the, well, I guess there's probably 2 animations. We have the rise and the fall, don't we? So there's our fall with sword. Where's our jump? Yeah, okay, so jump S and fall S. We need both of those. So duplicate this for jump S. Click here, and we'll change this to jump S. See how many frames we have in jump S, which is, right, I guess maybe we only need the first 2 frames, based on how I'm going to do it. So let's get rid of these extra keys, delete them. This would just be 0.2, and looping. Actually, not looping, just 0.2. So 0.2, yep. And then we're going to duplicate this, and we'll get our fall with sword, fall S. Change the animation to fall S. I'm going to see how many frames are in that. Fall S has 1 frame, so we do not need that second keyframe, and this can just be 0.1 seconds. Looping, or not really necessarily needing to loop it. Okay, so those are all the animations we need so far. What we're going to want to do is to jump into character state, the base script, and instead of calling play on the sprite, we're going to call play on the animation player. So I'm going to take Captain Clown Nose. We can still leave the reference to sprite there if we want, but really what we need is the animation player here. I'll type animation player, and I'm going to assign the animation player here. So now in the character state script, we're going to be calling, well, let's say character dot animation player, and I think it has a play function, but let me check here. Animation player dot play, the name of the string. Okay, yeah, okay. So yeah, this should essentially work. Okay, so we're still playing the name by the animation, but I decided to make it snake case here for all the animation names. So we're playing the animation on the animation player, not the animation on the animated sprite. So those are 2 distinct things. Keep that in mind. So on ground state, we're going to enter onto idle underscore s. Our idle animation is idle underscore s, and our run is run underscore s. For air state, I guess that should be playing jump. Well, actually, that depends. Whether the character's falling or rising is going to determine whether it is playing that animation. So I might just leave this blank here. And then we go to ground attack, which is going to start with attack 1. It's going to go to attack 2 and attack 3. So that's lowercase attack underscore 1, 2, 3. And we'll get to that in a minute. So first off, let's just play and see if this is even working. So I don't see the animations play. We got a bunch of errors here. So let's see. There's no animation idle s. Oh, right. Okay, so the other scripts are playing on the sprite still. We want to change that to animation player, character.animation player, and let's check the other scripts. Okay, so I think it was just there for now. Let's run it. And okay, now we're playing the animations on the animation player. That's good. That's what we want. Can jump into this little warning on the facing node and just underscore that because we're not using the delta. Okay, and now in the air state, basically, whenever we update, we want to select the animation, and also on enter, we want to select the animation as well. So I'll make a function here, select animation. So if the character.velocity is greater or equal to 0, character.velocity.y is greater or equal to, oh wait, hold on. It's reversed in Godot, so actually up is negative. So if it's less than or equal to 0, then we're going to do character.animationPlayer.play, and that's going to be our, that's actually going to be our rising animation. So let's export to string names here. Export var rising animation, string name, I'll just call it rising. And then at export var falling animation, string name is equal to falling. So we'll say rising animation. Otherwise, we're gonna play falling animation. Okay, now what I mean by that when I say rising animation is if we look at the jump animation, I guess we have to play it on the animation player now that we have one. Okay, so jump animation, whenever we start moving up, we don't want to necessarily play jump. That's only when jump is actually pressed. So, so the jump animation is actually going to be a little different than the rising animation. So let's do rising. We could say rising S if we want. And then I'm going to delete the first frame and just put this here. Make the duration 0.1. Oh, I guess we need frame 2 here, huh? So let's delete the frames here. On frame this. Okay, so if it's not letting you change these values, you can go to the animated sprite and just make sure this is stopped if you need to. But let's delete the frame there. We need to go to the start here and add in frame 2, duration 0.1, and hit play. Okay, so when it's rising, it's just going to play that. When it's falling, it's just going to play that, just a single frame. But when we jump, we play that little animation there to indicate, oh, we pressed jump. So, okay, well, first off, we'll start with this. We'll just have the select animation there. Let's call select animation. But this is only going to work for rising and falling, so we're not going to have the jump animation. So let's hit play. We get up here, and it doesn't find those because I forgot the underscore S. Underscore S is for sword, I guess, for that character. So we jump, we have our rising animation, and then falling. But it's not playing falling because falling S doesn't exist. So you just have to be careful about those names. So it's fall underscore S. Okay. So air state, fall underscore S, hit play. Okay, there we go. We have our rising and we have our falling, but we don't have our jump. So what we could do, let's say that when we jump, we dispatch a jump event. Dispatch jump. Okay, and then on the state machine, we add a transition, add transition states ground to states air, and we'll say jump. So when jump's pressed, we enter through the jump transition. So let's say that when we're in the air state, we have a jump lock. So if a jump animation is playing, then we will not do the select animation. So in here, var jump lock, we'll default that to false. But let's add in a setup. Function underscore setup, we're going to add a event handler. The event is jump, and the handler is on jump. Okay, so we need to put in that function down here, the function on jump. And this is where an events cargo would go as a parameter if you have any, but I didn't add one for transitioning here by jump. So when we jump, I'm going to add in the jump lock. So jump lock equals true. And I'll say for select animation that if jump lock, then we just return. So we can't choose a new animation until the jump lock is released, and we're going to release the jump lock when the animation is done playing. So to do that, we want to connect with the animation player on the character. So character.animation player. And you know what? So the character is a character body 2D right now, but I think we could start just calling this a character script. So in here, where we have a player, I'm going to have that extend character, which is a new class we'll just create right now. So let's create character, which extends character body 2D. Create. Okay, and this class will be named character. So if we jump to the player script, this extends character now. And then we'll move, let's say sprite and animation player, and maybe even player stats to that script. So character, it's going to have all of these. This will just be of type character stats because we don't know it's a player yet. And animation player and sprite. So okay, so now we need to click on the player script and assign those again. Okay, just over here on the right, and we'll quick load the player stats. So you can see here, player stats extends character stats, so it's an option here to select that. And now, because we know this is a character script, we can go to the character state script, look up symbol, and we're going to change this to character and agent as character. What that means is that now we can do something like character.animation player, and we'll see that pop up because that is a property that is officially on the character class. So now we jump back up to the air state, and we can do like character.animation player, and we'll be able to easily see the properties that are on here, such as .animation finished. And we're going to want to connect to the animation player on that for on animation finished. So let's do that. Function on animation finished. So we're going to get the p animation string name. So if the animation that was just finished is the jump animation, then we're going to release the jump lock. Okay, let's take this up to the top. P animation equals jump animation. So we might need to add that in. Jump animation, string name equals jump. But I happen to know that it is jump with the underscore s. So yeah, when jump s is done, then we can release that lock. Yeah, I think a better way of doing this actually, this would work, but let me try something else. I'll create a function here called release jump lock. Okay, while I'm pretty sure this would work, I actually have a better way of doing it. So for jump s, let's right click here. Let's add a track here. And this is going to be a property track on the air state. We're going to take air state dot. Okay, so while this would work, I actually have another idea. So why don't we, in character state, let's create two functions. One, lock animation. And then this is going to say animation lock equals true. And then function unlock animation. And we'll say animation lock equals false. And then we'll have bar animation lock here, which is going to default. It'll be a Boolean, but it defaults to false. Okay, now that we have that, on our animation player window, we can add a property track to the air state. And, oh, not a property track, a call method track on air state. And we're going to call here, we're going to call lock animation. And then when the animation is done, we're going to call unlock animation. So this is going to mean that during this animation, other parts of the air state can't interrupt it. So we don't need the jump lock. We don't need to connect to animation finished. We just need to check if animation lock. Then we return here, and down here we can get rid of that as well. Yeah, maybe we don't even need the setup function. Maybe we just go to the ground state, and when we call jump, we're just going to set the animation player to play jump. So character.animation player.play. This is going to be the jump animation. So let's add that up here at export var jump animation string name equals jump. Put that down here, play the jump animation name. And then we just need to make sure that this is correct. So it's called jump S on the animation player. Let's do that. And let's give it a shot. So I'm going to hit play. Let's see, character stats, run speed. Okay, so it's right now it's not getting the character stats. So let me see here. If we look up the symbol, character stats equals character.stats. And actually, we don't even really need a separate variable here. Character already has character stats. So let's just erase that. Let's go to ground state and clean up a bit. So yeah, anywhere that we need character stats, we're going to need to replace this with character.stats. So by the way, how I'm doing that is you select it, you hit Control R, and this is what we're replacing, and this is what we're replacing with. So replace all. And this means we're going onto the character object, we're finding its stats property, and we're getting the run speed off of that. Then likewise in air state, we're going to need the same thing. Find characters underscore stats and replace it with character.stats. And just replace all. Let's check the ground attack, nothing in there. Okay, so if we hit play, let's give that another shot. So still can't find the character.stats, so let's see why not. We have character here, and stats is null. So if we click here, we can see that it's assigned, but I bet if we check the level, then for whatever reason, it's not defaulting to its default, so we have to reset that there. Okay, let's hit play. Let's hit space. Okay, we saw we had the jump animation there. And then after the jump is done, we just played the rising animation and the falling animation. And to prove that that's actually working, let's go into the air state and I'll put a keyframe here and one here and one here. I'll hit play. Let's jump. Okay, we see the animation lock is currently active as per the jump animation because we're calling lock animation. Hit play. And after a couple frames, we get rising animation to play as it's released, but we're still going in a negative y direction, which is up. And then we hit play and we go to falling animation. So it's working perfectly, and we didn't even need the signal on the animation player because we're just calling it from within our animation. So now you can do a similar setup for anything else, like a ground attack. So we'll probably do that as well. Oh, we actually probably don't need to because we don't have a select animation for the ground attack. Let's go into our ground attack and actually make that work. Okay, so first off, let's get the first animation to play. So we need in player input, we'll jump into player actions here, right click, look up symbol. We'll need an attack button. So at export var attack, which is a string name, and we'll just put it generically as attack. So now we need this action added to project settings and put map add action attack. For attack, I'll just say left mouse button for me. Yep, sure, and hit close. It can be whatever key or input you want, really. Okay, so when we press attack, so we'll come down here to unhandled input. If event that is action pressed attack. Oh wait, player actions dot attack. That's the whole point of the player action script, is avoiding hard coding the strings. Then we'll say attack is true. But we'll say else if event dot is action released player actions dot attack. Then we'll say attack equals false. And then we'll just have to bind that to the blackboard as well. So var attack is a Boolean. We're going to bind it on the blackboard. So bb names dot attack var, and that's going to be connected to self attack. And we're not going to create the property. So let's jump into bb names, right click, look up symbol, and let's make static var control v paste attack var string name is equal to attack. Okay, now on our blackboard, we add in the attack. So add variable attack, which is a Boolean, whether the character is trying to attack currently, and close that. Okay, so we want to be able to transition from ground to ground attack if attack is pressed. So let's go into ground state. And we could say something like if blackboard.getVar bbnames.attackVar. So if that's true, then we'll dispatch an attack event. Okay, and then from that attack event, we jump to the state machine script. We want to bind it to the ground attack. So transitions states ground to states attack. And this will be the attack event. So just make sure that that state is added in here as well. So let's add in the attack state, assign it to the state of the ground attack node. And that should allow us to enter this, I think. So let's hit play. I'm going to left click. There we get our ground attack, just like that. Okay, so now if we're still pressing attack on the end of our attack animation, then I want to transition to attack 2, attack 3, and then after attack 3 is done, I always want to return to the ground state. So let's say function setup. Actually, let's say function enter. Because I only want these to really be triggering while we're in the ground state. So say character.animationPlayer.animationFinished.connect, and we'll say on animation finished. And then on function exit, we'll just disconnect that. So copy all this, paste it down there, change connect to disconnect. And then enter also needs to be calling the super. So super there to make sure it still calls character state enter. We don't have one set up for exit yet, so we don't need that. And then we need the animation finished callback. So this is going to be the animation string name. So if the animation equals animation name, then we're going to call character animation player dot play attack 2, else if the animation, oh, we could really make this a match statement actually. So match p animation. This is going to be if it's animation name, then we play this. If it is attack 2, then we're going to play attack 3. And the default, any other cases, is that we're going to dispatch the, let's see, I guess like attack finished. Or let's just call this the finished event. So also, we only want that to be occurring if the blackboard still has the attack Boolean set to true. So if not blackboard.getVar bbnames.attackVar, then we're just going to dispatch finished, and we're going to return. Okay, so that should allow us to have our attack chains, and we'll give that a shot. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to hold down left click, and then we get 3 attacks. Now the dispatch finished isn't doing anything yet, so let's go back to add transitions. Let's add a transition from states attack to states ground, and that's going to be on finished. Now let's hit play. I'm going to hold down left mouse button, and you can see we keep going between our different attacks. Now there's no cooldown on how long it takes to enter the ground attack, but it's just going to keep chaining as long as we hold down the attack button. So what we might want to do is make it so that after an attack enters, we immediately consume the attack value. So to make it so that you have to actually keep pressing the left mouse button to trigger the attacks to keep going, which is probably preferable, we might have to do something like if input.is action just pressed player actions dot attack. Actually, let's say var attack equals this. We could call this is attack. And then we'll just set it on the blackboard. So Oh, no. We'll set it locally. It's bound, right? So attack equals. Yeah. Okay. I think this is what we want. Attack equals import is action just pressed. And then we delete everything else. So this means that when we have import, only if the attack button was just pressed are we going to have attack true. Otherwise, it's going to be set to false. So let's see if that works. I'm going to left click once, and you see that it doesn't change the attacks. But if we do left click, left click, left click, yeah, okay, that's not exactly what we want either, because there's like you can see that sometimes it switches to the event, but this actually requires it to be in a single frame. Let's say if input is action just pressed attack, then we're going to say blackboard. No, we're going to say attack equals true, right? But then on ground attack, when we enter or when we change the animation, we want to set the value on the blackboard to be false. So we'll say blackboard.setVar bb names attack to false. And then down here as well, when we play an attack, we're going to set it to false. And here as well. So this is trying to turn it basically into a trigger where we tell it that it was pressed, but as soon as it's consumed, we set it back to false until we press the button again. So now if we go in here, I can left click, we get one animation. If I click twice, left click, then we get two. If I do 3 at the right times in sequence, then we get all 3 to play. And we can return to the base ground attack as well. So 1, 2, 3, yeah, 1, 2, 3. But we can stop at any time. So if we left click twice, we only get 2 attacks. Okay, and yeah, that's basically at least playing the animations for the ground state and returning back to the ground state when we're done. So I think that's going to wrap up this video. We still have to do air attack animations, and then I think we're going to add in the enemy movement and AI with behavior trees. I know it's taken a bit longer to get to that than we probably would have liked, but we're getting there, and we'll have the attacks ready so that we'll be able to basically hit the crab and deal some damage, put him in a hit state, etc. Once we get to that point. So thanks for watching to the end. Once again, the course project files are in the description, Ko-Fi and Patreon, and I will see you guys in my future video content.